Thank you very much. I'm very pleased for being here this morning, and I feel quite a heavy burden speaking after David March, but I'll do my best. Be indulgent, please. I work with the CNDP, which is, as you mentioned, the Centre National de Documentation Pédagogique. As a matter of fact, we are the public publisher for the Ministry of Education. So we publish any type of resources, from books to digital resources, and we are also in charge of making the French schooling system enter what we call the digital era. So that's part of what we were mentioning just before. As for my part, I will define myself as a pedagogical advisor, and I'm specifically in charge of two websites. One is called Emilang. I'm going to explain what it means later. And the other one, Emilang, is more or less designed to accompany teachers who teach their subject in a foreign language. And the other one is Primlang, which is the website for teachers teaching languages at the primary level. So, Emilang is the title Emilang is made with Émile, which is the acronym for Enseignement d'une matière par l'intégration d'une langue étrangère, which is the translation for CLIL, because in France we do not use English words, but we invent a French one, so that is Emilang, and this is the website Emilang. That's the explanation for the word. The fact is that in France, when we speak about CLIL teaching, or even Émile, the French translation, people don't know exactly what it is. Teachers do not know what CLIL is, what Émile is, so we say that we teach subject in foreign languages. And there are various contexts in which these teaching take place. I'm going to go through that later on. But first, when I was asked to give a title to this presentation, it's always difficult to find a title, and I chose the following title: Matching Language Teaching with Disciplinary Content. And I'm going to explain why I chose this title, because there is a funny part in it. To be frank, this title, I didn't choose this title specifically for this presentation. This title is the title of the workshop that we will give during the convention, the annual convention of the American Association of Foreign Language Teachers, which will be held by the end of November. And we will give this workshop, and when I sent the abstract to the website to announce this workshop, a few weeks later, I scanned through the website to check if it was on it, and finally I found it. But it happened that, to me, it seemed that they had made a mistake. I didn't read matching language teaching with disciplinary content, but merging language teaching with disciplinary content. And immediately I was very pleased with that, because to me it was much better, because I wasn't pleased with that title. And merging language teaching with disciplinary content seemed to me much better. Then I kept on reading, and it happened that it was not my workshop. It was the workshop of two Japanese teachers who had almost the same title. And suddenly I felt really jealous, because I really preferred their title. So I will see and meet them, I hope so, just to tell me if they want to give me the title and agree for me to use it. So why do I prefer the title merging rather than matching? To me, when we say matching, it seems that there is, of course, an association with the language and the subject, but somehow it seems that they are still taught separately. When we say merging, on the opposite, merging stresses the fact that the school subject is being taught in a foreign language, and that at the same time, the language is being taught through the subject. it points out the fact that the subject and the language are really intertwined. At this point, I would like to stress the fact that the subject is definitely part of the content. That the language is definitely part of the subject content. We often define the subject taught in foreign languages as non-linguistic subjects, DNL, and it happens to be the same here. There is a debate in France when we have the board of inspectors working on these websites saying they always regret the fact that we started naming them DNL, these non-linguistic subjects. Because first, it's always difficult to define something by what it is not. It's better to explain what it is. And also because the language is part also of this subject. To give an example, when we welcome migrants, the children of migrants in the French school, the first thing that we do, we teach them what we call a FLESCO. FLESCO stands for Français langue de scolarisation, or French for schooling. And when we teach them this French, we teach them how to use the language to learn disciplines, to learn subjects. Of course, it's quite different from the CLIL context, but somehow there are some similarities. And as a matter of fact, when we teach a subject, there is a language of the subject. There is a language for biology, a language for mathematics, a language for geography or history. Now, I would like to give you a rapid overview of bilingual education in the French educational system. I haven't used the word CLIL or Emile because most of these classes existed before CLIL or Emile were created. However, I think that as time passes, these curriculums or syllabuses are getting more and more clear. They are going clear. So there is quite a large variety of contexts in which subjects are taught in foreign languages in France. Traditionally, there were specific sections, what we call section internationale, section binationale, section européenne et de langues orientales. I will explain what they are and how they work. But what is interesting that more and more the teaching of subjects in a foreign language is gaining over traditional sections. More and more it is possible to find this sort of teaching in traditional sections, what I called traditional sections. For instance, in vocational schools, in some vocational schools, it is now compulsory to students receive a teaching of a technology teaching in both language, in English. Usually it's in English. 99% of the time it's in English, but it can be in another language. Now, at the baccalaureate level, foreign literature is being taught in the foreign language. And there is something, somewhere in the text, in the official text, we can read that CLIL or Emile should concern all students. It means that whenever it is possible, whenever the conditions are gathered, teachers should be in a position to receive a CLIL or a CLIL teaching. I will point out these conditions later on in my presentation. So, first, the the most ancient place where we can find clear teaching is in what we call the section internationale. Who is it for? It concerns, at the origin, these sections were created to welcome foreign students coming to France with their parents. And they start from primary school to the baccalaureate. So it's primary school, scuola media e liceo. Abibac is the word which is made up with abitur and baccalaureate. Bachibac, which is between France and Spain, which is the bachillerato and the baccalaureate. And finally, Esabac, that you know well, which is l'esame di Stato and the baccalaureate. Students enter these sections when they enter the French lycée. They are selected on the basis of their motivation and on their aptitude to reach the level B1 by the end of their first year at lycée. They follow a specific training based on the same principle as for the section internationale, that is to say, intensive training in the foreign language and teaching of a content subject in the language of the section. An emphasis is put on getting a good knowledge of the culture of the partner country through exchanges, which can be virtual, for example, with e-twinning, or real. Or rather than real, because an e-twinning project is something very real, I would say physical exchanges. What is very special with this section is that students can obtain a double diploma. And thus they can get access to higher education in the partner country exactly on the same basis as the German, Spanish or Italian students. I've given here the number of sections that exist in France, so you can in France and in the partner country, you can see that there are not that many, but each year there are more. So we can see that the figures are quite balanced for German and Spanish, but there are many more sections, ESABAC sections in Italy than in France. It's 280 in Italy when we have only 42 ESABAC in France. The reason is quite easy to explain. It's because in France, Italian is not that often chosen by students. They choose first English, then Spanish, then German, then usually Italian, and which Italian is getting into competition with Chinese now. Now, what I would like to stress is the fact that this section remain quite selective. And this for two reasons. First, for I would say an administrative reason, it is quite difficult to open this section because it's difficult for the director of a school to get one of these sections because we need to find agreements with the partner countries, and also because they are very demanding, well, quite demanding for students. Students who engage in this section are usually in a position to speak quite rapidly and to improve their language quite rapidly. The amount of classes is higher than in traditional sections. Now, what concerns a much greater number of pupils, of students, is what we call the section européenne et de langues orientales. These sections were created in 1992. And they represent almost 6,000 classes, covering 11 languages and concerning 280 students around. The figures are not really, I'm not sure about the figures, but it can be almost 300,000 now. The objective is always the same. It means intensive training in the foreign language and the teaching of a subject in the foreign language. Now, there is no selection for these classes except the motivation. Students must prove that they are motivated, that they want to enter these sections, and they can get into. There is no other selection. When they get the baccalaureate, they can obtain a special mention explaining that they have been into these sections. And what we notice now is that more and more students want to get into this section. It's really getting very popular. And they start usually at the college, scuola media, with an intensive training in the foreign language. And then when they get into the lycée, they're ready for a three-year curriculum with what we call a DNL teaching. Now, let's come from the part of the teachers. Who to teach? Who teaches? Who can teach in France? Who can teach a subject in a foreign language? I will answer that any teacher can teach his or her subject in a foreign language, provided he or she takes a specific examination that we called certification complémentaire. They can take this exam whenever they want during their career. Of course, the exam assesses the proficiency at speaking the foreign language, but not only, because examinators want to make sure that the teacher has a reflection upon his professional practice, that he has integrated what teaching in a foreign language means. It's not just translating from French to English, Italian, or Spanish. It's really entering another way of teaching, which that's what you mentioned before, which is innovative in the sense that it's not only frontal teaching. Last year, I invited an inspecteur général to take part to a talk, to a conference about CLIL in vocational school. And he told us that the number of teachers who can actually teach the subject in a foreign language is much higher compared to the institutional opportunities they have to do so, which means that many teachers are in a position to teach in a foreign language, but they can't find a space in schools where to do that. Sometimes they do not have a European section in their school. Sometimes there are no, the headmaster hasn't planned any space to do so, and so they can't do it when they would be in a position to do so. He also pointed the fact that we must take into account that the next generation of teachers has already experienced mobility, and that now more and more teachers will be eager to teach their discipline, their subject in a foreign language. In the same way as in Italy, as I think I've understood, new teachers will have, or any subject will have to get a B2 level in order to get the certification to teach. It means that in matter of proficiency, the next generation of teachers should be in a position to teach the subject in a foreign language. So it's a major change. So what makes us think that today, if clear teaching or teaching in a foreign subject in the foreign language is still something special, very soon it will be the rule. All of our students will receive this sort of education, of teaching. Now, the resources. I saw on the slide later, on a previous slide, I think that it was David March that showed a slide on which he explained that very often teachers explain that they lacked resources to teach. So we created the website Emilong. Emilong is an institutional website. It provides teachers with institutional information, cultural information. For example, it will advertise a film festival, an Italian film festival, whatever can be of interest for a teacher, for a language teacher, or for a teacher of any subject in the foreign language. The website also gather information about how to prepare la certification complémentaire, and that's really impressive to see how many teachers visit the pages dedicated to this specific exam. And each year there are more and more teachers wanting to prepare this certification. Of course, Emilong is also a website which promotes international openness and French schools. But the most important on this website is that it provides teachers with teaching materials. And here I would like to stress, I would like to insist on the fact how we work for this teaching material. Usually the teaching material provided on the website comes from teachers. We have several subjects: math, physics, biology, tourism, economics, and I'm forgetting one, I don't know which one, and history and geography. So teachers of these subjects offer their contribution. Then we work with inspector, and all the resources are validated. They need to be validated before being published on the website. The website also covers a range of 7 languages. And it is very funny because very often we have lately I put on the website a lesson plan of physics in Russian. Teachers teaching physics in Russian, I think there must be something like 10 in France. But when I checked the visits on the website, I saw that there were dozens of people visiting this lesson plan. And I checked, where do they come from? They come from France. So they are not physics teachers teaching in physics, teaching in Russian. They are only teachers interested in seeing what's going on with this specific teaching. They want to see what is being done in this lessons plan, how do teachers work, what they're doing when they teach physics in Russian. That's curiosity, and this curiosity is very interesting because it shows the interest that this sort of teaching arises among colleagues. So I invite you to visit the website. I will check the visit. So just go through and try to see what's going on. We do not, well, of course, there is Emilang in the title of the website, but it's very rarely we mention the fact that it is Clil or Emile, because as I said before, it's not something very familiar in France. Once, it was a few weeks ago, I was working with une inspectrice who said to me, "No, I don't want that. This is c'est de la pédagogie Emile," she said to me. It was something very, and there was something very scornful about it. And I forgot about it. I said, well, that's Emile, too bad. And so she didn't want it to be tagged as Emile. But when you looked at it, that was really clear. That was really clear. I mean, the way, it's very interesting to see how this material is designed and is being done. Of course, all the material, all the pedagogical material on the website, all the resources, all the lesson plans are based on what we call an action-oriented approach. Which means, and I'm quoting the Common European Framework, this approach is an action-oriented one in the fact that, in the sense that it views users and learners of a language primarily as social agents. That is to say, members of a society who have tasks, not exclusively language-related, to accomplish in a given set of circumstances, in a specific environment, and within a particular field of action. So it means that these lesson plans are not only about language, it's about attaining a task, doing something. We always set an objective. There is a task to be done. We engage the students in the teaching. As for the resources, I also mentioned here rapidly what is being done by the Institut Français with the website Vis-à-vis Italy, which is doing a great job with the ESABAC section. And you will find many resources that can be interesting on this site, also concerning clear material. Now, just to conclude, my last question would be, why going clear? And for the student, clear teaching makes sense, and they need to make sense while being educated. They need to understand why they are doing things. They need to have objectives to be active, to be actors of their education. And CLIL is part of this need for students. It's also a source of motivation for them. It is really motivating to be an actor of one's education. Now, for the teachers, it's part of their professional development. As I mentioned before, more and more teachers prove to be interested in this sort of teaching. They call us, they send us email asking, how do I open a European section in my school? Can you help me take the examination to get the habilitation to teach my subject in a foreign language? I think that they need to find also, just as the same way for students, they need to make sense. And it's also a way to make sense in their teaching. Now, more globally, there's something beyond motivation and making sense. It's also a matter of preparing a generation for mobility. It's more and more students live in the European context, and they will study abroad. They will meet other students, and we do not need only to teach them the grammar or the fact of being able to read a novel in a foreign language. We need to make sure that they can cooperate, that they can work together. And close teaching, the fact that we base the teaching on action, on what has to be done, on the task, is also a way to show them how to work together. And finally, of course, and it is the very art of the European construction, it is a way to meet the other. And I think that it is really in the very art of what we're doing when we teach and when we educate our students. Thank you.